imagine two people looking out at a winter landscape. One says, snow is white. Another says the same thing in German, Schnee ist weiß. The sounds are different. The written symbols are different. The grammar belongs to different languages. And yet, in an important sense, both people have said the same thing. Philosophy gives a name to that shared content, a proposition. A proposition is not the ink on the page, the sound wave in the air, or even one particular sentence. It is the meaning expressed by a declarative sentence, the sort of thing that can be true or false. When we ask whether snow is white is true, we are not mainly judging the English sentence as a physical object. We are judging the content it expresses. Propositions matter because they help separate sentences from what sentences say. A sentence is tied to a language, a time, a speaker, and a form of expression. A proposition is supposed to be the content that can remain the same across different expressions. This explains why translation is possible. If an English sentence and a German sentence express the same proposition, then translation is not merely replacing one set of sounds with another. It is preserving meaning. Propositions also explain how two different sentences in the same language can communicate the same content. The glass is empty and there is no liquid in the glass may differ in wording, but in a given context they can point toward the same claim about reality. Propositions are also called the objects of belief. Suppose Maya believes that the train leaves at 8, and Leo believes that the train leaves at 8. They may have formed that belief in different ways. Maya checked an app, while Leo read a station board. Still, their beliefs are directed at the same content. That shared content is the proposition that the train leaves at 8. This idea is useful because beliefs are not just vague mental feelings. They are usually about something. In philosophy of mind, belief, desire, hope, fear, and intention are often called propositional attitudes because they involve an attitude toward a proposition. You can believe that it will rain, hope that it will not rain, or fear that it will rain, while the proposition remains the same. A central feature of propositions is that they bear truth values. A proposition can be true or false. The proposition that Paris is in France is true because the world is the way the proposition says it is. The proposition that Paris is in Australia is false because the world does not match that content. This is why propositions are so important in logic. Arguments are not just strings of words, they involve claims that stand in relations of support, implication, contradiction, and consequence. When a logician studies an argument, the premises and conclusion are usually treated as propositions. The question becomes, if these propositions are true, must that proposition also be true? Not all propositions have the same logical shape. Philosophers and logicians classify them by the kind of information they carry and the way they assert it. An affirmative proposition says that something is the case, such as the door is open. A negative proposition denies something, such as the door is not open. A universal proposition makes a claim about every member of a group. All metals conduct electricity. An existential proposition says that at least one thing of a certain kind exists. Some birds cannot fly. These distinctions are not just labels. They affect reasoning. From all mammals are animals and all dogs are mammals, a valid pattern leads to all dogs are animals. Logical form helps reveal why. Another important contrast is between categorical and conditional propositions. A categorical proposition states something directly, the road is wet. A conditional proposition links one claim to another, if it rained, then the road is wet. Conditionals matter because much of human reasoning depends on them. We use them in science, planning, law, and everyday decision-making. If the alarm sounds, leave the building. If the sample changes color, the chemical is present. If the contract was signed, the agreement is binding. Propositions allow us to analyze these patterns without being distracted by the many different ways people phrase them in natural language. But what exactly are propositions? This is where the topic becomes controversial. Realists argue that propositions are part of reality in some sense. They are not merely convenient words philosophers use. If many people can believe the same thing, and if the same meaning can appear in different languages, then perhaps there really are shared contents that exist independently of any one sentence or mind. Anti-realists reject this. They may argue that propositions are useful abstractions, but not genuine entities. On their view, we can explain meaning and belief by talking about language use, mental states, or social practices, without adding propositions to our inventory of what exists. Among realists, there is another divide. Non-reductive realists hold that propositions are a unique kind of entity. They cannot be reduced to anything more familiar. They are simply propositions, the basic bearers of truth and meaning. Reductive realists try to analyze propositions in terms of other things. One influential idea treats a proposition as a set of possible worlds. On this view, to understand a proposition is to understand the circumstances under which it would be true. The proposition that snow is white corresponds to all possible worlds in which snow is white. This approach connects meaning with possibility, truth conditions, and modal reasoning. A different theory says propositions are structured entities. Instead of treating a proposition only as a set of worlds where it is true, this view looks at its internal parts. The proposition that Alice admires Beethoven seems to involve Alice, the relation of admiring, and Beethoven. Its structure matters because changing the order or relation changes the meaning. Alice admires Beethoven is not the same as Beethoven admires Alice. Structured theories try to capture how propositions are built from individuals, properties, concepts, and relations. This approach is especially appealing when we want to explain why two propositions can be true in exactly the same situations but still seem to mean different things. Other accounts identify propositions with properties, relations, or states of affairs. For example, a proposition might be understood as a way the world could be, or as a state of affairs that either obtains or fails to obtain. Philosophers also disagree about where propositions belong. Are they abstract objects outside space and time, like numbers are often thought to be? If so, they do not exist in anyone's head, and they are not located anywhere. Or are propositions psychological entities, dependent on mental activity? That would connect them closely to thought, but it raises a problem. How can two people share exactly the same proposition if it exists only inside individual minds? There is also a linguistic approach. Maybe propositions are grounded in language itself. After all, we usually encounter them through sentences, assertions, inscriptions, and speech acts. Linguists study how natural language encodes propositional content, and they quickly run into complications. Sentences can be ambiguous. The bank is closed may refer to a financial institution or the side of a river. Sentences can be vague. The mountain is tall depends on standards of comparison. Sentences can also be context-sensitive. I am here now expresses different propositions depending on who says it, where, and when. So even if propositions are tied to language, they cannot be identified with sentence forms alone. Propositions also face famous paradoxes. The liar paradox is the classic example. This sentence is false. If the proposition expressed is true, then what it says is the case, so it is false. But if it is false, then what it says is not the case, so it seems true. This creates a loop that challenges simple theories of truth and meaning. Any theory of propositions must explain how propositions can bear truth values without collapsing into contradiction in cases like this. Some solutions restrict which sentences express genuine propositions. Others revise how truth works for self-referential claims. The paradox shows that propositions are not just a technical detail, they sit at the center of deep puzzles about language and reality. The study of propositions has a long history. Ancient philosophers, including Aristotle and the Stoics, analyzed assertion, logic, and the structure of what is said. Medieval thinkers such as William of Ockham explored mental language and the contents of thought. In modern philosophy, Gottlob Frege made a major distinction between expressions and the senses they express, helping shape later debates about meaning. Bertrand Russell developed influential views about propositions, logical form, and the relation between language and the world. Today, propositions remain important across logic, linguistics, psychology, and philosophy of mind. They are the hidden contents behind what we assert, doubt, translate, infer, and believe. To study propositions is to study how thought and language connect to truth. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.